By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Hog Style. My name's Sean. I got Steve Thomas right here next to me. We are brought to you by TicketClub.com. TicketClub.com is your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Make sure you're going to TicketClub.com to get your tickets for this season, and make sure you're getting there by going to the Hog Style first and clicking over at the top of the page. Steve, how you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm doing just fine. It's kind of like Christmas morning, a little bit, isn't it? Week one of the football season's here. So excited, very excited. We just had the big roster reveal this past weekend, so that's good. But yeah, everybody please use Ticket Club. It's a good deal, and more importantly, it helps us. If you like what we do, it's stuff that isn't free. It's a lot of effort, and we actually are putting money into this. So please do use Ticket Club if you can. We'd appreciate it.
Amen to that. Steve, are you going to go to any games this year, actually? Have you looked over the schedule? Are you going to do any games?
I'm thinking about maybe the New Orleans game.
Nice.
Quite possibly. Maybe the Texans game. We'll have to see. One of those two, possibly. I haven't been to a game in a couple of years just because of life, and it hasn't. They haven't rolled through Houston, obviously. So it's maybe.
I'm a little embarrassed to say, being someone that does Redskins podcast, but it has been a while since I have been to a game myself. Let's see. I'm going to say I think I missed the last two seasons seeing any games at all live.
Well, you live in Denver. I mean,
yeah,
you have an
that
excuse.
hurts, but still, what's depressing about that is like the 5-6 years preceding that, I went to a game or more than one game every year. So it's a little bit of a drought.
I went to a very famous game. My last game I went to, it's been several years for me too. Again, just because of life. But the one I went to was a pretty famous game. It was the last one I went to. It was the 2012 RG3 Thanksgiving Day game in Dallas.
Oh wow! You were at that?
Yeah, I was at that game. That was the last game I went to. Wish we could go to more. But quite frankly, NFL. If you're listening to this, it's so inconvenient and so expensive to go to these games. Forget the travel, because you and I have signed up for that. But
True.
It is so expensive to go to these games, and it takes so long, and it's such a hassle that I can see the point of these people who say, it's better to watch on your couch. You get better views, I think, in the stadium if you have decent seats. But other than that, you're going to save $500.
Yeah.
You don't have to kill an entire Sunday. Unless you're dumb enough to do a show on a website, and then you kill an entire Sunday. But for normal people, I can kind of get the argument, quite honestly. And I think that's why you see the NFL doing things like more Wi-Fi in stadiums, cheaper food prices. They have to do something to draw these people in, because it's just gotten so outrageously expensive. And we in Washington don't even have PSLs to deal with. Let's talk about that. Most teams have PSLs you got to pay, which is just a wallet rape, basically, by football teams. So
yeah, there's a lot of that goes around.
Yeah.
And you, of course, mean pumpkin spice latte when you say PSL, right?
Oh, yeah, pumpkin spice latte. Yeah, that's right. Or it's the many thousands of dollars that teams make you pay to have the right to buy their ticket.
Right. See, that's
one of the two.
I think that's what you're going for.
Yeah. It was.
Okay. Well, let's get to some football stuff, because we have two things to discuss, two major things, I should say, at least, to discuss today, right, Steve? We've got roster cut downs, final cuts, and the Ravens game, which we have not discussed on this show. So maybe we should do the game first.
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, first of all, folks, what we're doing here, we're transitioning to the regular in-season schedule. And so this week we will have our first Game 1 preview of the year. That will be released Thursday morning. And then we will have our regular Sunday afternoon / Monday morning game recap show. And that's what we'll do through the next 17 weeks. Minus we'll do something else, I don't know what, for the bye week. But, okay, week 1, Game 4. Ravens at Redskins. This was a god-awful mess of a game. It was better known it will forever be known as the Kevin Hogan era of Redskins football. He lasted about 3 hours. Kevin Hogan got the start. The Redskins lost this game 30-20. Sean, I think we can safely say that 30-20 does not effectively encapsulate how this game went.
No, not at all. I mean, it was one of those games where we had, a quick strike early in the game-ish, and then it was a drought, and they ran away with it, seemed like.
Yeah. Kevin Hogan went 22 of 38 for 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 just god-awful interceptions. At least one god-awful interception. One was just terrible. One of the worst passes I've ever seen an NFL quarterback throw in that second one. But we'll get to that. Quarterback rating, 84.5. Rob Kelly was our leading rusher, 11 carries, 49 yards. Devon Smith, 7 carries, 42 yards. Samaje Perine, 7 carries, 30 yards. Receiving-wise, Simi Cobbs, 3 for 75. Darvin Kidsey, 5 for 46. Trey Quinn, the immortal Trey Quinn, according to some of you, 3 for 43. Capri Bibbs, 3 for 41. Goes down from there. And on defense, Sean Dan Hamilton, yet again, led the team in tackles. He didn't have a perfect game, but he did lead the team in tackles. Seven tackles, 3 solo. DeShazer Everett, 6 tackles, 5 solo. Kenny Ladler, 5 for 5, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of Baltimore, personally, the RG3 battle that everybody was looking forward to did not happen.
Did not happen.
Yeah, he did. He was dressed. He was the emergency backup, but he did not play. Lamar Jackson got the start. Who's a guy I personally like. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. He was 9 for 15, 109 yards. And then he also had 25 yards rushing. And then somebody named Josh Woodrum cleaned up in the second half, 3 for 8, 3 of 37 yards. Enough of that. So that is stats. Sean, what did you think about the game?
Yeah, I mean, what can you really say? Redskins are struggling to get it done in so many ways. You see nice spots. You see some nice things happening on defense. You see some good moments. But on the whole, it's just this team can't seem to get it done. This has been a very uninspiring preseason on the whole. I don't want to read too much into it since we played so little of our top guys, it seemed like. But, not much to be too terribly inspired by.
No, I mean, it was kind of like that for the whole preseason, really. I mean,
exactly.
The team looked kind of blah, looked uninspired. It looked like, I got the sense that Jay got really freaked out about Darius Geis' injury. And maybe I'm totally wrong.
No, I think you're right.
But Jay kind of alluded to that in a presser or two, that he alluded to injuries more than once throughout the preseason. And I don't know. I've always thought you just can't play scared. I mean, I personally would have rather it was a big debate in Redskins fandom and everything else. And I personally would have rather seen the starters get more time this preseason. I don't know if I would have played too many of them in week 4. I mean, I get it. But I don't think they played enough necessarily. But in terms of this game, we really don't want to spend too much time on it because who cares, really at this point. But just a few notes. Kevin Hogan, I thought, looked largely terrible. My original, when we signed him, I remember giving the scathing scouting report on him.
Yeah.
And then I remember after week 1 of the preseason saying, we got to give him time. And he didn't. Well, he had time. And Kevin Hogan did suck, and he still sucks. And now he's going to suck on his couch. So he just wasn't good.
And watch it. He's the only person that seems to be able to score in this preseason, my friend.
That's true. Yeah, he's the only one who's actually scored a touchdown or had a touchdown pass. That's very true. Although I think Colt had one too, so we can't.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
In terms of notes on the game, we'll go to defense first, I guess, because this guy actually made the roster. Adonis Alexander. I like his man coverage skills. He showed some good man coverage skills in this game, I thought. He had the interception in the end zone that was called back, fine. But I like his man coverage skills. Notice that. I noticed that Greg Stroman keeps getting punt return after punt return. So I'm guessing that he's going to be our starting punt returner. Jay hasn't said, but I'm guessing that. Rob Cal. This game. The other thing I think that we had in this game was the resurgence of Rob Kelly. I think Rob Kelly probably earned himself a roster spot with this game. Thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree. I almost want to jump right into the roster stuff now to discuss that.
Let's just do it. Who cares? Yeah, this is preseason's over. Who cares? Let's do
you brought up Hogan, and I was like, I want to jump right into the roster update because of that. Okay, let's just do that. You said running backs. You want to start?
Let's do running backs since I brought up Rob Kelly.
So how are we going to take this? Are we going to talk about who's on the team now, or are we going to just talk about the guys that got cut?
Well, let's just kind of do both. So we've got the running back group. Where we ended up with here is that the starter is Adrian Peterson, Rob Kelly, Samaje Perine made the team, Chris Thompson, obviously. Byron Marshall, as of the moment we record this, which is Sunday late morning, East Coast time, Byron Marshall is still in the active roster. However, Jay Gruden told the media last night at his charity karaoke event that the plan is to IR Marshall for the year, which would leave us with just Peterson, Thompson, Kelly, and Perine. So that is the running back group. They cut Capri Bibbs and they cut Davion Smith. So that is the group.
Yeah, so terribly surprised by that move, are you?
No, because,
Me either.
Personally, I think Capri Bibbs is a better running back than at a minimum Samaje Perine. Not necessarily better, I think, than rookie Rob Kelly. But the Rob Kelly we've seen the past 2 years, who has regressed tremendously, maybe so. But the thing is, Jay also said in that karaoke event that they hope to bring Kelly back, or Bibbs back, meaning they hope to get him. They hope that he clears waivers and makes the practice squad. I think what's going on here is that they can't put Perine on the practice squad, and they can't put Kelly on the practice squad because those guys are going to get signed immediately. So Bibbs is kind of the only guy they can maybe stash away, as the emergency backup, particularly since Byron Marshall is unhealthy. So I think it's more a roster management move than it is necessarily a talent move. And Bibbs, odds are, especially with the way the Grim Reapers treated the Redskins in the past couple of years, odds are Bibbs is going to get a shot anyway, assuming he clears waivers, which we don't know that as of this moment.
Yeah, this is probably one of the bigger surprises to me. I'm not necessarily indicting the move of letting these two guys go, and I actually, you just pointing out that it could be a more strategic roster decision makes complete sense. But I was a little surprised to see old Fat Rob. Frankly, I know we haven't seen very much of them, but I thought Bibbs, and Davion Smith had showed enough flashes to at least warrant, a little bit more time with this team, over Kelly, especially as we've seen the last 2 years. But, I'm not terribly disappointed about this move. I think we've got an okay stable. And like I said, your strategic point makes sense, but little bit surprised by the running back decision.
I think the big question really, and Alex almost laughed at me last week for suggesting this, but the big question is how is the team going to divvy up the carries with this group? Adrian Peterson, one thing I think we saw in a quarter and a half or whatever of Adrian Peterson is he is still, even at age 33, by far and away the best running back we have. Yeah. My view of it, which a lot of people disagree with, my view of it is let's just run this guy till he drops. Because it's a one-year deal. We have Darius Guice coming back next year. Not to be callous, but who cares about his health? He's on a one-year deal. He's not going to be the starter here next year, absent disaster happening. And I think that we'd be better served by Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson getting as many of the carries as possible. Why would you not do it? Answer, Adrian Peterson is old, and old people get hurt. Well, right. So what? If he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and then we move on. I don't see the need to split it up.
It's just that fine line that we have to walk of, yes, we've only got him on a one-year deal. It's not terribly bad for the team if he goes down, but do you really want a situation where he goes down in week 3, week 4, and then we're stuck with the guys that we've seen the last several years, and we know what's happened with that. 33 some years old. It's just, I don't know if you can give him that many carries. You got to use him a lot. I mean, it's clear we're going to have to ride this guy heavy this season. There's no doubt about that. But I would hope that we at least are a little bit more generous with how we spread it around, because I don't want to see this guy go down in the first third of the season and leave us SOL.
If he does, he does, man. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, you can disagree with me if you want out there. If it were me, I would give Peterson 20 carries a game. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and then we move on. That's what I would do. A lot of you would. The other question here is who's going to be the number 2 back? But Chris Thompson is the third down back. Call that whatever you want. But I'm talking about Adrian Peterson's backup, whether it's a split carry thing, whether it's not. Who's the backup? Is it Kelly or Perine?
Probably a little bit of both. I would say maybe Perine with the edge, wouldn't you assume, at this point? If you had to rank who the running backs on this team, Perine would probably be third, right?
I don't know if Jay would agree with you, because Perine has got the start in the preseason. He got the start in preseason game 3. He's always seemed to be the favorite. And let's not forget that we didn't mention this in the preseason, in the Ravens game recap we just did, but Perine put the ball on the ground twice.
Yeah.
In that game. And Jay hates fumbles. If there's one thing we know about Jay Gruden, is Jay hates fumbles.
Yeah.
Matt Jones got cut because of his fumbles. And
right.
Jay specifically mentioned this. The Redskins didn't send out a transcript of the post-game comments. Thanks a lot, Redskins. But like they usually do, so I don't have them in front of me. But Jay mentioned the fumble thing about Perine after the game. And so that weighs on him. So I think for that reason, whether or not you think out there that Perine is a better runner than Kelly, I think Jay is going to make him third string just because of the turnovers.
Yeah, it's a good point. I could see it happening. You can't cough the ball up and turn it over like that. At this point, he's got to control that. Good point.
Okay.
Let's do the next position group. Who else we got?
Let's do quarterbacks. Let's do quarterbacks. Yeah, let's start with quarterbacks.
Cool.
Obviously, Alex Smith is the starter. Obviously, Colt McCoy is the backup. There is no other quarterback on the roster. We have to assume that one of either Kevin Hogan, we don't know the practice squad, as I said, as of when we're recording this. We have to assume either Kevin Hogan, Connor Jessup, or someone else is going to be the third quarterback on the practice squad. They probably aren't going to factor into the season. We probably will mention that they're on the practice squad and never mention their name again.
Most likely.
On this show. But Alex didn't look good against Denver, okay?
Nope.
The man's entitled to have a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. He's a proven performer, and I think his statistics bear that out. All the same, it wasn't exactly encouraging to see him underperform. He just threw the ball badly. I don't know if that we can interpret anything into that. I'm personally excited to see Alex Smith play as the quarterback this year. I'm excited to see him do better, hopefully, than Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
If you do in one thing, Alex, this
make
year,
it that.
Make it that. Exactly, make it that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm a little surprised at the decision, considering who they are. At the choice there to run with two quarterbacks. I mean, even the Ravens kept RG3. I was kind of hoping they were going to let him go and we could snag him back up. That's
Can you
a joke.
Imagine that?
That's a joke. Yeah, there's a lot of people that probably listen to this that probably thought I was totally serious about that. A little bit surprised, man. Colt McCoy, what we've said it before. I like him a lot. I don't have too many knocks on his mind. Obviously, he has an arm strength problem. But more than that, the man's made out of glass, almost as much as Jordan Reed. That plus the fact that you've got, Smith, who's looked a little rusty, which isn't a big deal, sort of expected. But it's not a very deep stable of quarterbacks, and they have a history of getting hurt. I'm a little bit surprised not to have someone else waiting in the wings there.
Yeah, the Redskins, I don't know if we've ever carried three quarterbacks on the roster since Jay's been here, though.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I guess they did the first year because we had RG3, Cousins, and then Colt. But beyond that, we've always sort of carried two.
Yeah, you're right.
But certainly the past 2 years, once the RG3 drama left town, they rolled with two. And look,
but we're not young anymore at quarterback,
no,
and that's the thing
is,
that I think gets us,
But if both these two guys go down, I don't care who the third stringer is. That third stringer isn't going to rescue the season.
It's over. That's it. That's
it's
true.
Over. It's over.
That's true.
I think what would happen is they would probably they'd have to sign somebody. They may or may not even play that guy on the practice squad. They may bring up some, Jeff George type guy who's sitting at home aching for a shot, like Rex Grossman or somebody.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'd make a trade. I don't know if they would, because Kevin Hogan was terrible.
Yeah.
He really was awful. And I don't know anything about Connor Jessup other than he spells his name with an O and not a U.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I know about Connor Jessup.
It's hard to muster much emotion about either one of these guys. I would agree with you.
Yeah. So I'm not too worried about the two quarterback thing just because I know it does. If they both go down, we can pack it up.
We'll find someone else. And like you said, it's not going to move the needle too much at that point. Okay, fair enough. God, hopefully they can stay upright. Colt's already hurt, isn't he?
I think he's going to be fine. He was hurt.
He got a boo-boo on his hand.
Yeah,
I believe was the scientific
haven't heard
diagnosis.
from him. We haven't heard anything about him post Denver game. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
All right, well, let's move on from there. Who we got
Okay.
next?
Let's do wide receivers. Want to do wide receivers?
Yeah, this is probably a little bit more of a surprise, right? Maybe?
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, the group we have here that made the team is Josh Doxson as the X number 1 receiver, or X receiver. Paul Richardson's going to be the Z. Jameson Crowder's going to be in his normal slot. Maurice Harris is going to be the number 4 receiver, and then Mr. Irrelevant himself, Trey Quinn, made the team, and then the Apostle Cam Sims, who has captured the hearts and minds of Redskins fans everywhere, made the team as the number 6 receiver. So in terms of this group, I mean, it's an unproven group.
Yeah.
Jameson Crowder's the only one that's proven, and I can see why you could both be excited about this group, and I can see why you'd be nervous about this group. And if I was an impartial observer looking at this, I'd go, woof. Oh, my God, this is awful. But that's what I would say.
I don't know if I'd be that hard on it, Steve.
I don't think that. I'm just saying if a third-party neutral observer looking at this group compared to, like, the Giants, you know, for example, we don't have that. Josh Doxson is a massive, huge question mark.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of youth. There's a lot of unproven talent at this point. I think there's a lot of raw talent, but it is raw. There's no doubt about that. How do you feel about Simi Cobbs and Mr. Irrelevant making this team? How does this update to the wide receiver core strike you?
I think you meant Cam Sims. Simi Cobbs.
Sorry,
yeah.
Cam Sims.
Yeah. They both have that CS thing going. It's hard to mix them up. In terms of Cam, I think Cam, I wrote a whole huge long thing on Cam. I like him. If you guys haven't read it, please read it because those things take a lot of effort. But I like Cam Sims. I think he was underutilized at Alabama. I don't know if Alabama knew what they had in him. And also, Alabama's quarterback situation is so awful from a passing perspective that it's just like where receivers go to die. If you're not, like Calvin Ridley got most of the touches at Alabama, and then they sort of ignored everybody else. What's funny is that if you guys don't know this, and if you'd read my piece, you would. But they use Cam as the slot receiver at Alabama, and here in DC, he's been playing the X and the Z. So they very clearly look at him as a backup, primarily to Josh Doxson and Paul Richardson. Mm-hmm. But I think he's got talent. He's not a burner, but he has decent speed for being a big guy. He's 6'5". If you measure him without shoes on, I think he'd be 6'4.5" probably. But he's 6'5". And he's one of these 50-50 ball guys, where he can go up and get the ball. One thing he does well is he fights. He can fight for the ball, and he can use his size. So that's good. And Trey Quinn, I think the man, he's got to be related to Ryan Grant. There has to be a family connection here somehow. Has to be. I don't know if they're like brothers. Maybe one of them is adopted because one's African American, one's white. But somehow they're brothers. They have to be.
You mean they've endeared themselves to the coaching staff somehow?
No, I mean that they have the same parents. Those two men are related. Okay, that's what I'm talking. I don't know how one of them came out.
Yeah, but you see that in their play style, though. You mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
These are people that have mediocre athletic ability. Let's forget about personality because Trey Quinn seems to be a very flashy, outspoken guy, and Ryan Grant was not that. But in terms of play style, mediocre athletic ability, quality hands, quality route runners. Trey is a slot guy, and Ryan played other things. Okay, but he reminds me of Ryan Grant. That's all. But I think he's another guy who the fans are kind of overvaluing a little bit. I mean, Trey isn't going to come in and move the needle. You're talking about the number 5 or number 6 receiver. He's a slot back. He's a backup to Jameson Crowder. That's what he is. So I'm glad he's on the team. He's got potential. He's got skills. I'm not looking for him to move the needle in particular. And Cam, Cam will have his moments this year, but I think mainly he has to grow because he still has a lot to learn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, that's my thoughts.
Brian Quick, surprised? See him go? I would have thought he would make the team myself.
Yeah, I kind of thought he would make the team too. Brian does not have a high ceiling. He's a longtime veteran. The coaches obviously liked him because they brought him back from last year. They didn't have to do that. There are a million Brian. I hate to say this because you and I are sitting on our couches, but this is what we do. But there's a million Brian Quicks.
Yeah.
You can find a Brian Quick. Brian Quick brought nothing special to his team, and so I think the team. Doug Williams and Jay Gruden and company probably looked at it and go, Brian's not special, let's roll with youth. That seems to be what the answer was.
Yeah. I'm not terribly opposed to that philosophy, my friend. I'm down with it.
I'll tell you what, though. I hope that by the time you hear this, we'll know. I hope that Darvin Kidsey and Sammy Cobbs, at least one of those guys, makes the practice squad because they showed potential. And the two of them in particular had a good preseason kind of all along and the chances they got. So I hope at least one of them makes the practice squad.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Me too. Okay, let's move on. What do you want to do next?
Let's finish with the pass catchers, and then we'll move to O-line last. Tight ends, the tight end group. Jordan
Lost a
Reed,
couple of those. Excuse me.
Yeah, Jordan Reed, Vernon Davis, Jeremy Sprinkle. A lot of people thought J.P. Holtz would make the team. He didn't. Manessa Garner obviously is on IR, and then Flanagan got cut. So we're down to Reed, Davis, and Sprinkle. I guess they're hoping beyond hope that Jordan Reed is actually going to be healthy. I don't know what to think about that situation anymore.
Yeah. I think you're right. They're banking on. They're banking on some things to be different.
Yeah.
I'm not actually terribly surprised by any of these tight end moves. I'm sure you're not either. This sort of makes complete sense.
I kind of thought I had a Holtz on my. I didn't publish this on the site because I sort of ran out of time, but I had Holtz in my 53 man prediction. I think I put it in the comment section. If you want to read that, find it. Feel free. But please don't.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I had Holtz on my 53 because I kind of thought that he had showed enough versatility to make it through. He's a decent blocker. And we'd seen him line up at fullback a little bit. So for that reason, I thought maybe they would take a chance on him, but they didn't. He was the only one I thought that maybe he would be the one, but he's not. So there you go. That's tight ends. Yeah.
Cool.
We'll see a lot of Vernon Davis would be my guess because, I just don't know who out there could reasonably suspect that Jordan Reed is going to be healthy. I don't know if he's even going to play in week 1. We'll get to the preview when we get to it, but we haven't seen hide nor hair of him all preseason.
That's right.
So who knows if he is going to be healthy, what kind of shape is he in? No,
exactly.
Zero idea. Don't know. You want to move on?
Yeah, let's do the next one.
Okay. Offensive line.
Offensive line. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we know the 5 starters, obviously. We've got Trent Williams and Morgan Moses are the 2 tackles. Chase Ray is the center. Sean Laval is the left guard. Brandon Scherf is the right guard. Pretty happy with that. Obviously, Sean Laval is a bit of a question mark. Chase Ray is still sort of growing into the position. The real problem here, people, is we've got Ty and Secchi and a bunch of yuck, as the backup.
As depth. Yep.
Because, newsflash. Yeah, newsflash. The second, third string offensive line has looked like Drek for the entire preseason. Just awful. And we lost Tyler Catalina to IR. We lost Kyle Kalis to being cut, and they cut a bunch of other stuff. Casey Dunn made the roster, and that ought to tell you guys something. I would
Good point.
suspect, and this will be answered by the time this show is published. But I would suspect that once Byron Marshall goes on IR, that his replacement is probably a guard.
Yeah.
Because other than that, because if it's not, then we're rolling with Tony Bergstrom and Casey Dunn as our backups. And I don't know if anybody out there actually wants that.
Yeah, we've been talking about this fix the O-line thing since we started doing the Hogsty, and all the progress that we've made is we've got a very thin line of, decent, I'll say, people up front, but absolutely no depth. We saw what happened with that last year. It's just it is really disappointing how tenuous a situation it still feels like on the offensive line. One real injury, one of those guys goes down, you've already got, I think, a gaping deficiency in your offensive line. Yeah,
truth be told, Ty and Secchi may be the principal backup at guard and tackle right now.
Yeah, see, there you go. It's just not a ringing endorsement of the offensive line.
No, because Jaron Christian needs to not see the field. Tony Bergstrom was terrible at center. I'm going to move. I have Tony. I've always had listed Tony on the tackle section of our roster chart or our salary cap chart. It was mainly because I didn't know who he was really at all when we signed him, and I saw he was 6'5", so I threw him into the tackle spot. He really is. He's an interior guy, though. He was playing center, so I'm going to move him to the guard section when I get around to it. But
that doesn't change anything about the situation.
No, it doesn't. No, it just changes my chart. That's it. So.
Yeah.
So look for a guard. Look for an interior offensive lineman to be signed when Brandon Marshall goes to IR, which will give us one roster spot open.
Yeah. Pray for a healthy offensive line this year.
Pray. And unfortunately, Trent Williams, he's become injury prone.
Yeah.
He's a warrior. He's a football warrior. And he plays through more than anybody who should have to play through, obviously. But the simple fact of the matter is he's been hurt every year for the past 2 or 3 years.
That's right.
I don't know how much longer Trent's gonna last. I don't know. And are we going to get to week 12 and have him so beat up that he can barely play again? And if we do that, what happens?
Yeah.
What happens?
I'm not looking forward to the time when the team has to pick up a new left tackle to replace him because we haven't even been able to enjoy him in the years he's been here because the team has been so terrible.
And he's also he benched himself because of a drug suspension, which think what you want about the rules. The rules are the rules. And, we've been through that with him. We've been through injuries. He's had a controversial tenure. Controversial is the wrong term. He's missed time here for various reasons. And, the team has kind of stunk since he's been here. But some of it's his own doing with the drug stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's hard to believe he's only I don't know if he's even 30 years old yet. I have his birthday. Wait,
I think he is.
That. I put his birthday. I put birthdays on the website now. By the way, people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my chart. I'm into double digits now for my columns on my chart that I have on here. Yeah, he is born in 1988, so he is 30. He's 30. He is 30 now because his birthday's in July. So, he's 30 years old. You don't get healthier after 30 when you're an NFL offensive lineman.
Yeah, or when you're not, as I found as well, Steve.
That's true.
Okay, let's move on then unless you have someone else on offensive line that we forgot.
No, not really. I'd rather forget Tony Bergstrom and Casey Dunn. So.
Me too. Okay, let's move on from there. Who we got? You want to do defense?
We have to do defense since we just did offense.
Yeah, I'm just looking over the list here. Okay, you want to do linebackers?
Okay.
What
do you want? Linebackers? All right, we can do linebackers. Start with the inside guys. Obviously, Mason Foster, Zach Brown are the starters. There's no question there, no surprise there. The big surprise, I think, in the roster cuts for everybody was Martrell Spate being cut.
Yeah.
That surprised me a lot. I thought Martrell had a very solid preseason. I was very surprised that they cut him. Sean Deion Hamilton has looked good at times. And I know a lot of you out there are Hamilton fans. I'm a Hamilton fan. He's looked good, but he's also missed a bunch of tackles. If you guys haven't really been paying attention, you might not see it, but he's missed his share of tackles too. I guess this is another youth movement thing. They see potential in him, and I see potential in him, but it's not like this guy is all pro ready right now. So don't think that because he's not. And then we've got Josh Harvey Clemens is like your nickel backer, and then Zach Vigil, who is Tom Compton reborn, as this, non-athletic effort guy, as that Compton was. Now that's Vigil. So that's the inside linebacker group. Let's stop there and talk about that before we move on to outside linebackers.
Sure. Like you said, no huge surprises. I don't know. Spate doesn't. I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
I'm not going to lose sleep over it. I'm just surprised.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I think you could point to as being a slight surprise there, it would be that move. But, I'm not feeling nearly as bad about our crew of linebackers on this team, the final roster, as I am about, offensive linemen, for example, which is what we were just talking about. I feel pretty good about it, in fact. I
think we're pretty solid at inside linebackers, personally.
Me too.
I was a little surprised that Pete Robertson got cut. I thought Pete would maybe make the team also. I kind of thought they would roll with 10 linebackers because somebody would maybe step up on special teams, and I had Pete as the 10th. So that was a little surprising to me. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid group. Pending health, obviously, but Foster and Brown are a solid combination of starters. Brown is much better, as most of you know, when he does not have to be the signal caller. He can be the weak side guy where he can use his speed. Because when Brown isn't as effective as when he gets caught up in interior traffic, so that's not what you want with Brown. So I think they're in the right roles. So let's pray for health. Again, but I think it's if any group is solid, the most solid on this team, I think it's the linebackers.
I think linemen and linebackers right now, I think they're looking pretty good. Yeah.
Outside linebackers, Ryan Kerrigan and Preston Smith are going to be the starters. Ryan Anderson and Pernell McPhee are the backups. And that's all we have for the outside linebacker group right now. It's a big, Ryan Kerrigan is Ryan Kerrigan. He's going to produce. If there's anything that we've seen out of him over the years, he's Mr. Consistency. He's going to probably get his 8 to 10 sacks, every year. I mean, he's not a perfect player. He gets beat a lot. I think he's weaker in the run. He's limited because I presumably he's the reason why he sticks on the right side or the defensive left, meaning facing the offensive right tackles because of his hearing deficiency in his left ear.
That's right.
I would assume that's the reason why they don't flip him. He's not an elite pass rusher, but he's certainly the best we have.
And you're right; he'll probably get 8 sacks, maybe 6 or 7, but they'll be weird. They'll be like, he doesn't do anything for 6 weeks, and then he gets 4 in a game, and then he disappears for another 4 weeks, and then he gets 2. It's going to be something like that.
Yeah,
it's a very inconsistent consistency with Kerrigan. I love Kerrigan. Don't get me wrong, but.
That's fair enough. I mean, and Preston Smith is the other guy. Preston is in the last year of his contract this year. He has a lot to prove. If you look at, Preston has put up some numbers, but he's been more inconsistent far more inconsistent than Ryan Kerrigan. Because, I agree with you that sometimes Ryan has a tendency to disappear a little bit, and he's not as effective. Preston Smith has gone weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
Not shown up.
That's right.
And I was a little surprised that they didn't keep a speed guy here. I don't know why they didn't keep Junior Gillette. I think they would have had him, Junior or somebody like him would be helpful as a speed guy, as a dedicated third down pass rusher, which they don't have because Pernell McPhee is most definitely not a speed guy either.
Yeah.
None of these guys, they're all kind of built the same. All these guys are sort of big, burly power guys. They're all, the smallest one on the roster is Ryan Anderson, who is 250 pounds. And he's most definitely, he had a little bit of a disappointing year last year in some eyes. He didn't really disappoint me because, I never thought he was a pass rusher. I always thought he was a run stopper,
Yeah, but other people were looking for that big, flashy production.
Yeah.
As they always are.
Yeah, but certainly Ryan has to get better, and he's going to have to do much more this year if he's going to expect the team to let Preston Smith go and bring him up into the starter role in 2019. And I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that would be my goal if I were Ryan Anderson.
Sure.
And if that's going to happen, he's got to do a lot more than he did last year, including become a pass rusher, even if that's not really his thing.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Let's move on, just because I just glanced at the time.
Yeah, we went way over what we intended to do.
Oh well, we'll wrap it up with the last of these guys. Who did we miss?
Well, we need defensive line and then the defensive backfield.
Defensive backfield, yep.
Do D-line?
Yeah, let's do the line.
Okay.
Not a huge amount of moves on this roster cut down for the line, was there?
Yeah, well, they kept 6. They kept Jonathan Allen, Ziggy Hood, Matt Ioannidis, Anthony Lanier, Darren Payne, obviously, and then Tim Settle. The guy they cut that was the guy that sort of everybody was rooting for was Phil Taylor. But, when Tim Settle produced, the writing was on the wall for him.
Yeah, I would agree, exactly.
And they cut some of these guys, that we knew were going to get cut, and, JoJo Wicker, and, I hope they all land on their feet, but they definitely kept the best 6. The question among some was whether they were going to keep 7. I just don't think you keep 7 when you're running a 4-3 or a 3-4 defense.
Yeah,
That's just me.
I would agree.
Yeah.
No major surprises here. I'm not attached to Phil Taylor. Who was the other one? Dante Sawyer, it looks like.
Yeah, Dante Sawyer's another one.
I agree completely with what you said. They kept the guys that were obvious to keep. I don't think you need 7 either, so I'm not losing sleep over either of these guys that got cut, the 2 or 3 that did.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Settle was another star of the preseason.
Yeah, he looked awesome.
And most of the time, I mean, look, the Redskins did not play run defense very well in the preseason. And so I'm not ready to just elect him to the Hall of Fame either necessarily, but certainly he was a major surprise. He outplayed his draft status.
That's right.
At a minimum, he outplayed his draft status.
And it was Settle who keeps getting his hands up and batting down passes, right?
Yeah, well, he was, yes, yeah.
So, I'm down for it.
I mean, long term, you have to think that maybe long term we're thinking Allen and Payne are going to be the defensive ends in the 3-4, and then Settle be the nose tackle.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more of Payne in the interior, in the inside this year. But if Settle becomes a starter, which seems likely, that perhaps to get them all on the field at the same time, you go Allen and Payne at the end and Settle in the middle. I mean, that may be the future. And then Ioannidis is your primary rotating in guy. Ziggy Hood's contract's up this year. If all these guys pan out, they probably won't re-sign him. And then you have Anthony Lanier, who also has showed promise. So it's a pretty good group. I mean,
that sounds pretty good to me.
I was much more high on them before the Denver game. Yeah. Because they looked like Drek against Denver. The entire group did.
Yeah, you got to give folks a 1-week pass on that one, maybe. Right. I think they looked worse.
Yeah. But
okay.
The point is, they kept the right 6 for sure. I don't think they need 7. You guys can disagree with me, but I thought it was the right move.
No, I agree with you, Steve. I'm with you on this one. I think they kept the right guys.
All right. You want to do corners?
Yes, let's get into that backfield now.
Yeah, okay. Corners, the starters obviously are Josh Norman and Quentin Dunbar. Fabian Moreau is going to be the slot corner. And then they kept Greg Stroman, who was a 7th-round draft pick, Adonis Alexander, who was the supplemental 6th-round draft pick, so he will cost the team a 6th-rounder next year. And then somebody named Danny Johnson played his way on the roster. Danny Johnson's an undrafted free agent. You see these guys every year. He looked great. Played, he's only 5'9". He's not big, but he had an outstanding preseason. That's why he's on the active roster. The surprise was that they kept 6. They have some years past kept 5, but I think this is a case of this guy Danny Johnson was just so good that we can't afford to cut him. Keep talent when you have it, and that's the case. Stroman is probably going to be the punt returner. You have to think. And Stroman looked pretty good too, in coverage. So I think that the future is high with this group. Obviously Josh Norman's a big money guy. He didn't have a good preseason, I didn't think, but I'm willing to give him a pass because we know he can play. So to me the real question to me is Fabian Moreau, because he's got a ton of talent. He was a 2nd-round draft pick and all that. And I've extolled the virtues of Fabian Moreau on this show. But the question is he really good enough to be the starting slot guy? Don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know what I could add to that. I agree. No huge surprises, I would say. I like the youth at this position. I like, for the most part, the talent we have. I mean, I know they're not world beaters or anything. But certainly solid. Hopefully nobody goes down because, once again, I think we're in the situation where there's a drop-off between the top guys we have playing corner and some of the other guys that are corners on this team. But, on the whole, it's another one of those youthful homegrown talent positions that we have. I feel pretty good about it.
They had to cut talent. Ranthony Texada looked good at times. This year.
Yeah, but just not any better than the guys they kept, though.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. But, even Prince Charles Awara looked good. They had to cut him, but he played pretty well. And just as an aside, who names an American child after British royalty? I don't know. Maybe he's not American. I don't know anything about him, really. But I just would name my kid after Prince Charles. But that's, I guess, another show.
Hey, teach his own.
That's for the Hogsty British Royal Family Show.
Right. Our British Royal podcast.
So anyway, that's corner group. I mean, it was good to see that we had talent and had to choose among the talent. So that's good. They had too many. What can you say? Safeties, DJ Swearinger, Monte Nicholson, Deshager Everett, and Troy Apke. by my view, Troy Apke's lucky to be on this roster.
Yeah, I think so.
I had him out personally.
He's got that fast closing speed. That's what they look for.
The dude is an arm tackler.
Yeah,
he's he's got alligator arms. For those of you who've played football any level, what defensive coaches always teach is don't just grab for somebody with your arms. You have to drive your shoulder into the core of their body and then wrap up. What Troy Apke was doing continually is flailing at people as they were running past him.
Yeah, especially in the NFL, you can't do that.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I mean, I guess we need team speed, and I guess that's why he's probably on the roster. I just have to hope I hope that he never has to play ever this year, at least in terms of defensive. Maybe he's going to get on the field as a special teamer, but if you can't tackle, I'm not sure what good you're going to do on special teams either. I think Troy Apke is the guy who I personally would have put him on the practice squad, but I'm not Jake Gruden.
Yeah, no, I don't have huge emotions about this. I kind of agree with you, but whatever.
I don't care that much. Yeah, I'm not going to lose sleep over the number 4 safety. But our job here is to comment, and so that's my comment.
Yeah, I like him though. I think you're right. He's like a sloppy, technique guy, but
yeah,
he's got some raw physical talent and ability, like you said, with the speed. So, let's roll with it and see what he can do.
Hopefully the coaches can coach him up. And the last final group, we'll go with the special teams. Trustwaite's the punter, Dustin Hopkins the kicker, Nick Sundberg's the long snapper. We think Greg Stroman is probably going to be the punt returner. Don't know really who's going to be the kick returner. We'll see. In today's NFL, it's not that important. Although I will say that because of some of the rule changes, I think we're going to see more kickoff returns, not less.
Yeah.
Which is probably an unintended consequence of the rule changes. But that seemed to be what would happen. It seemed to be the Redskins kicked it short almost every single kickoff.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Seemed like it.
Yeah, so we may see more kickoff returns. Can we get one? But I know we need to wrap up, but I want to stop asking for Dan Bailey, people. I saw this all day because I was hovering over on roster cutdown day. I was the guy on the website trying to update all this stuff. And so I was basically sitting in front of a computer all day, waiting and waiting. For those of you who followed our live thread, it was me updating. And so there were the Cowboys cut Dan Bailey. There were about 1 billion calls for Dan Bailey. I showed you, and yes, Dan has a better career kick percentage than Hopkins. But if you look at the last 2 years, Hopkins is actually a little bit better. I think it's safe to say that Dan is better at over 50 yards, but Hop has been money under 40. I just think I'd be a panic move.
Yeah.
They like Hopkins. Hopkins knows the team, knows the franchise. He's here. He does fine. Yes, he needs to do better over 50 yards. But I don't think Dan Bailey is the answer. I don't think he's a big improvement, put it that way.
Yeah, how about we just help get him under 50 yards, and we can let him kick from there. I like that plan.
Let's score touchdowns, and so we won't have as many short field goals. How about that?
Let's cut our kicker, and there's no other choice now. You can only score. I don't know. I agree. Dan Bailey, great kicker for the Cowboys for many years, but...
And do you really want another Cowboy in here? I mean,
of course not.
Cowboy?
No, of course not. And Hopkins hasn't been bad enough to warrant that, so whatever.
Okay, and just to finish this up here, Stacey McGee got put on the PUP list, which means he can come back in weeks. They'll have to make a decision on him in week 6. And then Josh Holsey's on the non-football injury list. So eventually they'll have to make a decision on him too, but they don't count on the roster spot for now. And then injured reserve as of day 1, week 1, Tyler Catalina, Robert Davis, Manissa Garner, Darius Geis, and Ari Kwanjo. That's our injured reserve. So we already have 5. See if we can break our record of 20, from last year. We'll see.
Yeah, don't tempt this team with a good time, Steve.
Don't tempt fate.
Yeah. All right, so cool. Well, that's the roster update. What's your overall thought on the guys that were released? We got a big long list here. Do you have any? I guess we talked about our individual surprises, but any other big thoughts about it, big trends you noticed, anything else?
No, I mean, the trend was they went with a youth movement at wide receiver, which is good. Running backs, they kept 5, but they really didn't keep 5, because Marshall's going to go to IR. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was the right move to have 5 running backs on the roster. they had talent to choose from, but I just don't know what you would do with a fifth running back. That's not a fullback, at least.
Yeah.
The other thing they could do on that, I guess, is rather than an offensive lineman, is bring a fullback in. We'll see. So that's possible. But no, I wasn't very surprised. The real surprise to me was Martrell Spate. I didn't expect him to get cut. But I'm happy with the linebacker group, and I'm not going to lose sleep over Martrell Spate.
Yeah, I agree. I think Spate may be quick. Just looking over the list again to see if anyone else really surprised me. But on the whole, like you said, these were sensible cuts. They made sense. I think for the most part, everyone saw them coming. I feel pretty good about this final roster.
Yeah. I think they picked the right 53, put that way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not going to be the 91 Redskins or anything, but of the team guys we had, they picked the right ones.
Yeah, I think the guys, for the most part, made it obvious choices.
Yeah.
So then, Sunday, the 9th, we have an actual football game coming up against the Cardinals. It is finally time. So thank you for being with us through this horrible offseason. We know it's been a slog, but we're finally there. So, Steve, one more time, when will our preview episode be released to the listeners?
Thursday morning. Every Thursday morning for Sunday games, our preview will be released. If we have a Monday night game, it may change. If the last week of the season gets flexed to Saturday for some reason, we may do it a day early. But by and large, the schedule is going to be every Thursday morning, game preview show released, and then every Monday morning will be the game recap show. We will also have a written preview, which will be released on Thursday morning in written form on the site.
There you go. So make sure you are coming back to thehogsty.com, checking out all that written content, because like Steve said, we've got game recaps and previews in written form and show form both.
Yeah, and the recap, too. The recap will be released either Sunday night or Monday morning.
That's right.
Recap.
So you missed a show, you can always catch us on the site in our written breakdowns. Okay, well, we have gone way over today, as we always do, but we're just having so much fun looking at this roster. But we'll let everyone get back to their lives now. We will see you all next week. Take care and have a good one.